I would like to call the January 14 Planning and Policy meeting to order. Start out by public comment.
Oh,
I see we have on the back here of the day's business. This is not so, it is public comment. There'll be a public comment of 3 minutes at the beginning and at the end. So at this time, is there any public comment from the audience? If you have some, please state your name and 3 minutes. Good morning.
Lori Burks from Georgetown Township. And I saw on the agenda that you're going to be appointing a new finance chair. And I just want to encourage you to really do an assessment of the background, the qualifications, the previous history of financial dealings of the individual that you're looking at appointing. Because I have some concerns that could really be a risk for the county. Should you appoint someone that has got a history of a lack of integrity. And I'm a CPA and I audited financial statements for 14 years. And as an auditor, you're required to assess fraud risk. And if a CPA who's auditing your financial statements has a concern for potential significant fraud risk, they may not feel comfortable auditing the financial statements. So if they were to be made aware that the person who is overseeing the financial process has had a history of questionable financial dealings, they may have a real difficult time with a clear conscience giving you a clean opinion. As you know, that affects your bond rating, that affects a lot of different things, your federal awards. So I would really encourage you to do your due diligence in assessing this. And as a citizen of this county, I and a lot of others have concerns and realize that that's a position of a lot of authority and would like someone in that position with character and the expertise to be able to handle that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Is there any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support. Motion made, support. All approval, say aye.
Aye.
Consider resolutions. The approval of the minutes from December 3, 2024 Planning and Policy Committee meeting and December 17, 24 Health and Human Services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Same. Action items, election of the committee vice chair. The next motion is to, for vice chair. Is there a motion?
I'll make one. I'd like to make a motion to elect Jim Barry as vice chair.
There's a second.
Second.
Second. Any other motion? Is there else?
I would like to make the motion to elect Sylvia Rhodey as vice chair.
There's a second.
Support.
Support. See any other motion? See any other motion? See any other motion? Discussion. Rachel, please call the roll.
Oh, can I
Sure.
speak something? I would just like to share with my commissioners why I recommended Sylvia Rhodey as vice chair of planning and policy. I believe that her background in social work lends itself very well to being vice chair of planning and policy. And she has also proved over this last couple of years with writing some resolutions, but mostly with the health and human services being brought under planning and policy. I believe she would be a real asset with her background and knowledge, bringing it forward.
Thank you, Ellison. Any other discussion?
I'd like to say something on behalf of Jim. On the one hand, I echo what Allison just said about Sylvia, but I also think that Jim brings a demeanor and a perspective that can and a personality that can really serve through the cross sections of all the issues that we're going to be facing with planning. So, so he'll have my vote.
Thank you, John. Any other discussion? Rachel, please call the roll.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes. Oh, excuse me.
Barry.
Jim Barry, please.
Presumably.
I thought I was voting on my own. So
Mr. Moss,
Rhodey.
Mr. Barry,
Barry.
Mr. Bonema,
Barry.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Rhodey.
Mr. Zylstra,
Barry.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Rhodey.
Mrs. Medema,
Rhodey.
Mr. Juritzma,
Barry.
Mr. Bruger,
Barry.
Mr. Kyers,
Jim Barry.
7 votes for Barry.
Congratulations, Jim.
you stay.
You want to move down?
I want to move down.
You get away with the press.
All right, we'll move on to action item number 2. It's about the Ottawa County Parks Foundation. The motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners project agreement between Ottawa County Parks Foundation and the Ottawa County Parks and Recreation Commission for the Rosemount expansion.
So moved.
Motion made
I'll support.
and supported. Discussion, Jason.
Morning,
Morning.
Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to join you today. So Happy New Year. My name is Jason Shamblin. It's my privilege to be the Parks and Recreation Director for the Parks Commission here. So before you, we have an agreement that formally ties the Parks Foundation to the county. The Parks Commission's been working with the foundation on this project for, I think the initial conversations probably started in 2022. We just last month successfully closed on the acquisition. And then there's still some fundraising that will go along with that. So the foundation was formed in particular to support the Parks Commission in 2016. There is a MOU that defines the relationship between the Parks Foundation and the Parks Commission, and we have a Parks Commissioner who sits on the board of the foundation, as well as myself. I have a non-voting board seat as the Parks Director. Year to date, we think just approximately or a little bit over 12 million has been raised. So we have ongoing work that goes on for the Item Explorers Trail, quite a bit of funding from the foundation for the Ottawa Sands with the access improvements as well as the campground there, and now Rosemount. So this agreement just formally ties, the county and the foundation together. We wouldn't, expect to break ground on that project until 2027. Next month we'll be finalizing, or this month we'll be finalizing our master plan for the new property, and then you'll hear from us in the future for the grant request for the trust fund. So happy to answer any questions, or Glenn Bosch is here with us today to go into a little bit more of some of the fundraising end. You have quite a bit of material in the packet. So
Questions for Jason? Josh?
How much do you need to raise? How much do we need to raise?
so it's a little bit over $1 million is what the project budget is for them to raise.
And if somebody wanted to make a contribution, how would they go about doing that?
They can connect with the Parks Foundation. So there's a website for Glenn Bosch in our department.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Rachel, please call the roll.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Juritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Rachel. Action item number 3, Historical Ottawa Beach. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a license agreement to provide access and parking for the West Michigan Park Association Van Dyke Lot, 0 North Park Avenue, or One Sustainable Similar.
So moved.
Support.
This you too, Jason?
Yes, sir. So thank you. So we have 12 properties in historic Ottawa Beach and unique situation there. And part of our stipulation order and arrangement with the West Michigan Park Association is that we provide parking for some of the cottagers there who do not have access, direct vehicle access. So there was a undeveloped lot. They approached us, the owner approached us and asked for rights to the park. So we worked with legal counsel to come up with this license. It's very similar to a couple previous licenses dating back to the mid 2000s that allows non-exclusive access that then provides the county then to cancel that parking if needed to be in the future. But we do, it's worth noting in this relationship, we do have an obligation with those property owners to accommodate that residential parking. So we would need to accommodate it somehow.
Ooh,
Any questions on this?
yeah, who's responsible for maintaining it once it's established?
So that would be the owner.
The private property owners. Okay. All right. No further questions. Thanks.
Any other questions for Jason?
How many parking spots are there?
That we
Just a
have,
guess, is it
I
50 or
think
is
we've
it?
got 3 different parking areas, and then the West Michigan Park Association manages those. So there is a lease between the county and WAMPA is what we call them, that then accommodates those various parking.
Question, is that lot that's, the street kind of hits the, general store and then goes west? And there's a lot that's kind of between the cottages and the state park. Is that? what
Yes,
we're
so
talking-
it's
okay.
Auburn, that's the big one. And then there are a couple smaller ones that accommodate some of the other outliers.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Jim, is this in your district?
Yes, it is. Beautiful District 1.
And it's a very unique arrangement. You know, it took a little while to work on this license with the attorneys and getting everybody to agree, but yeah, the homeowners excited they'll actually be moving a house from one lot to that lot and historic.
Any more questions? Rachel, please call the roll.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mr. Juritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Next, we'll move on to information from the Health and Human Services. The first one is from the Community Action Agency, and it's from Jennifer Borowski. And if I mispronounce your name, please correct me when you get up to this podium. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
It's Brzezowski, we're close. So I thought I would start with a brief overview of our agency for those of you that are new to the board. I'll start with a common misconception. We are almost always confused with Community Action House. So to differentiate between the two, community action agencies are private, sometimes nonprofit or public organizations. And we were created by the federal government back in 1964. The whole goal is to combat poverty in different designated areas. So our status is a result of this very specific designation by state government. So MDHHS is who is over us technically for a lot of our grant funding and reporting. So we also have a tripartite board structure. And one of the most important parts of that is that we invite those that could be clients to the table so that they have a say in some of the decisions that are being made. So each community action agency is a little bit different. It all depends on what the needs are in the particular community. So what we focus on is energy efficiency and doing so with our home weatherization program. That's probably one of our biggest programs right now. It's been very successful. We also have a couple of food programs, a very small emergency home repair program, and we also do utility assistance. All of our program, or the majority of our programs are for income eligible individuals and families. And again, the goal is just to help them become more financially self-sufficient. We are, another common misconception, we're 100% funded by grants, fee-for-service programs, and donations. We do not receive any county funds, although we are county employees under a county department. And we also dedicate a significant amount of our block grant funding to the county for overhead, so for admin, IT, HR, those pieces. So that's kind of in a nutshell who we are, and I just thought I'd give a couple of important updates. I mentioned fundraising, so our Walk for Warmth is our main, our one and only fundraiser, and that's happening on Friday, March 7th at EV Construction in Holland, right across the street from Window on the Waterfront. It's a free event. We love to have donations, of course, and then there's also other items for sale there. And it's a great, fun event for the family. We would love to have the board there to represent us. Also, very exciting news. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., we will be receiving a Social Justice Award from the Human Relations Commission at Holland City Hall, and that's for our work in the community, as well as our work with fundraising efforts. So we'll be very excited to receive that tomorrow evening.
Jennifer, what time was the Walk for Warmth? Sorry. I
It is
forgot the date.
at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
And what day again?
That is Friday, March 7th.
I'd
Friday.
really encourage the commissioners to make it out to that. It's a great event. Really enjoyed it last time. A couple of commissioners made it last time, so see if we can improve on that number.
Yes.
Where did you say it was going to be held?
It's at EV Construction. So they're kindly letting us use their warehouse space. So we celebrate there and before and after, but then we also do the walk. It's a beautiful.
Congratulations also on your award.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
We're very excited. Appreciate that.
Make sure you invite that caramel corn vendor back.
They will be there. Popcorn will absolutely be there.
That's my weakness right there, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we have some great vendors this year. I'll definitely give more detail next month too of the vendors. Any other questions?
Oh, great. Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
update. You bet. And next we'll have Department of Veterans Affairs. Jason.
Don't blame you for trying that last.
I know. Thank you.
It's Schenkel.
Ankle.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I could have tried.
I did a short PowerPoint, so, you know, on track. So I'm Jason Schenkel with the Department of Veteran Services.
Mhm. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so really just a brief overview. I thought it was important to kind of give the new commissioners an update of who we are and what we do, and the new administrator as well. So I'll just buzz through this fairly quick. I'll embed a little bit of some stats for us as we go along. So the main mission really for us is federal VA benefits. We work through service-connected disabilities, pension benefits, dependency, aid and attendance, VA medical benefits, burial and survivor benefits at the federal level. So in order to provide that service, you must be an accredited veteran service officer. So all of our VSOs, our county VSOs, and our outsourced VSOs through our organizations are all accredited through their respective organizations. Financial emergent funding. We really have two emergent fundings that we provide. One's through the state of Michigan, through the Michigan Veterans Trust Fund. There's two parts to that. One is a wartime era emergent funding, and the other one is a 65 plus peacetime emergent funding. And then the second is our Ottawa County Veterans Services Committee funding, which provides both wartime and peacetime emergent funding for those that find themselves in cases where they just need some additional help to get through a tough time. Medical transportation, we have a contract through Hope Network of West Michigan. It's funded through our County Veteran Service Fund grants. They provide medical transportation for our veterans to any medical appointments, whether it's in Ottawa County or outside the county. It could be community care. It could be to any of our veteran clinics, Muskegon, Wyoming. It could get them to Battle Creek to our regional hospital. And we also provide some services to folks to Ann Arbor to the federal VA hospital in Ann Arbor. County burial allowance, it's a fund provided by the state statute required for the county to provide our county burial allowance. It's currently $300. There's some stipulations as far as asset limits go. It's important to note that our Veterans Committee voted at our last meeting to raise both amounts. I will forward that up through this committee and to the board for your recognition and approval. They did elect and vote to approve it to $600 and to raise the asset limits from 40,000 to 70,000. And that's based off of fiscal recommendations on the cost of living adjustments. The last time it was amended was 2004 from the state. We as a county have not raised this amount at all, to my knowledge. So based upon, really our committee's forward thinking and looking at the costs of funerals within the county, they felt it was important to raise this amount. So like, again, I'll forward that formally up through the board. Outreach and community partnership. If you'll notice on Facebook, we've been doing quite a bit of small resource events throughout the year. Our primary resource event and stand down typically happens around August, September. We're in the planning phases for that now. We have a planning committee meeting on Friday at 11 to start working through the details, location, and when we do that. But that's usually our large resource and stand down event. But throughout the year, we're doing smaller outreach events. We were at the VFW in Holland, Outside End Therapy, American House, Honor Manor, Seniors Helping Seniors. The last one we just did on Friday was with Disability Lakeshore Network. These small outreach events really allow us a couple of things. One, it gives us the ability to, as a department, learn about these resources and what they're providing, so we can better serve our veterans. Two, it allows these organizations really some designated time to give us presentations about what resources they provide. It allows us to, they typically host them, so we get to see their facilities, we get to see their assets, what they can help us and support. And at the same time, veterans are showing up to these events. So it gives us an opportunity to really explain to them what resources we're providing as a department. And then that nonprofit gets an opportunity to present on what they have to offer as well. So it's an awesome learning environment for both us as a department and our veterans to help better serve them. And then as far as, we've attended quite a bit of training this last quarter. Dwayne, my assistant, has a mental health background. We've attended 3 trainings this quarter. Detroit, Grand Rapids. We're back to Grand Rapids, I think, tomorrow. We've done SAVE training, which is a suicide awareness. We've done Thrive training. And then we've also did mental health first aid. We do have a partnership coming up with U of M and Community Mental Health to discuss current mental health conditions, medications, and other therapies that we could look at for mental health treatment within the veteran community. All right, currently, just the staff to give you a rundown. Obviously, we have Dwayne, who's my administrative assistant. We have our admin aide, Spencer, our community outreach specialist, Caleb, which yesterday was his first day. And then we have a vacancy right now for a county veteran service officer. Actually, the offer's been made. It's been accepted. So Al Lamb is his name. He should be starting on Monday, provided we don't have any issues. If you notice, all of us are veterans. The entire department is veteran ran. All the employees are veterans. And then we have our outside service organizations. We have Cheryl from the Vietnam Vets of America, who does come into our office on Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays. And then we also have Patty from the American Legion that comes in on Wednesday. Budget, really, we have 4 budget streams. The general fund obviously is our largest. Our County Veteran Service Fund grant through the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, and then our Board of Commissioner Initiative grant. And then we do periodically receive some small public donations. And that is the end of that. So we do have a few things coming up as far as events go. February 7th, we will have a coffee and donut event at the Gateway Mission in Holland. February 27th, we will be at the GVSU Veterans Center. Spend some time with our veteran students at GVSU. American House Honor Manor on February 21st. This week on January 16th, I'm actually providing some training to our Sheriff's Department with our victim advocacy team to discuss the VA and how they respond to VA crisis within the county. And then what the steps are, who they call, things of that nature. So that'll really be a good collaboration between our department and the Sheriff's Department to ensure that when they respond to any veteran issues within the community, we have the ability to help navigate after that incident. So any questions? Yes, sir. Jason, thank you for your presentation. Just a couple questions. Do you know how many veterans there are in Ottawa County? Yes, sir. So we are actually the ninth largest county out of 83 in the state of Michigan. We're at roughly about 11,700 on the books. Is there a concentration of where those veterans are located, or maybe you don't know that? I don't know. I'm just curious. Are there pockets of veterans? Yeah. So I mean, typically Holland, Grand Haven. Grand Haven has a fairly large retirement population, obviously with the Coast Guard and that nature. But we're pretty spread out. Hudsonville-Jenison has a pretty good sized population as well. But Holland would primarily be the largest population in the county. Okay, thank you very much.
Nelson?
Morning, Jason.
Good
Thanks for
morning.
being here. I noticed you had put pending hire the county VSO. Can you tell us a little bit where you're at in the process with that one?
Yeah, actually, he starts Monday.
Oh, great.
Yep. So Monday the 20th, he will start. So Al Lamb, 30-year Navy veteran, retiree, retired senior master chief, currently lives in Texas. He is from our area, and him and his family will be moving back. So right now, the reason I left it pending is he has a lot of winter weather to navigate between Texas and here.
Mhm.
So hopefully he makes it up here on time.
Yep.
So,
Well, congrats on the hire and hope that goes well. I'm thankful to hear he has background being a veteran. I know that was something that had been mentioned to me often, that they hoped that a VSO would be someone with that background. So glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, John's got one.
Oh, you can say something?
Go ahead.
I did.
You did say John.
I said Josh.
Oh, you did.
I did.
J-O.
Yeah, I know.
Josh.
All J's.
Get used to it, bud.
Go for it, John. I'll follow
No,
you.
no, go ahead.
All right, okay. Comment and then a couple questions. The COLA adjustments, especially with the burial, awesome. When I saw that $300 number, I winced. Oh, that's nowhere near enough. So glad you guys adjusted that upwards. The second question, can you send us your PowerPoint? I don't know if I missed it already and you did, my apologies, but would love to get a copy of the PowerPoint.
absolutely.
Maybe
Yeah.
put in the packet,
Or yeah, for the packet.
public.
Yeah, heck yeah, for the public, that'd be great. And then the third one is, I understand that we're always under scrutiny when we're spending money. And one of the questions that was raised to me by a citizen, I don't remember when, I know when, it was last summer, but it had to do with the billboards, which were, I thought, great. But the question raised was, how much are we spending on billboards and couldn't that go to veterans? So the question for you guys is, what's the intent with those? Give me something to say back to them to let them know what the intent is, the idea is, the costs, how they're covered, things like that.
Yeah, sure. So the cost was roughly $16,000. It was paid for through our County Veteran Service Fund grant. So we asked the state to pay for that. We thought it was important. Obviously, I came in on January 2nd of 2024. We thought it was important from a marketing strategy and communication strategy that folks know who we are and what we do and how to get a hold of us. We've had used billboards in the past, but we thought it was important to continue with that outreach and marketing strategy. We do have money programmed again this year as well for billboards. So, you know, billboards, local media, radio, news, and then we also have some advertising marketing money set aside for social media content as well. So it was just important for us to let our constituents and our veterans know that we're here and who we are. We strategically place them throughout the county, mainly on our main highways, to catch folks coming from Muskegon, Grand Rapids, coming south, coming north into Holland. So it was just an important marketing for people to know who we are and where we're at. So this year, we're, you know, with our new space, we're still looking at, you know, some timelines so we can backwards plan that a little bit. So the billboard and advertising will be associated with our new space, so folks know where we're going and how they can reach us. So, and I'll have, you know, conversations with our comms team here in the county with Shannon, that we have the other Shannon, to make sure that we're doing, the messaging is correct and that we're.
Thank you. And magic words for me there were state funding. So
April. Yes.
So thank you, Jason. Again, that was a great presentation, and I think we all clearly support what you do. Can you give us a couple of examples of the community partners that you outreach to and how that kind of works?
Yeah, so I'll give you this past Friday. So Lakeshore Disability Network, they serve not just veterans, but all constituents that have disabilities. Their main focus is on education and work skills. So let's say an individual loses their ability to continue the current career because of a disability, they help with re-education. They have medical tools such as walkers, and they put on computer classes to help folks that may need to learn how to navigate computer systems. And then they have voc rehab. They work with the federal VA on vocational rehabilitation to help provide new career skills for folks to get new careers and get started with that. So it was important for us to spend some time with them and collaborate with them because one of our pillars is employment. So having an understanding of what other resources there are in the county that we can help folks get to. So like I said, that's just a small example. I spent some time with the Tri-Cities Habitat for Humanity, working with Essential Patriots, which is another veteran nonprofit, having a discussion about our homeless issues, affordable housing, and their grants in order to put veterans into the homes and communities. You know, we work with, there's a lot, Commissioner Tebow, there's a lot of organizations within our county that work. One of our biggest partners is with West Michigan Veterans Coalition. They're based out of Grand Rapids, but they cover, they're what's called a BCAT, which is Region 4. So they cover, I think it's 13 counties. And we're part of that region. So we spend a lot of time with them working through mental health, physical health, employment, education. They share a very similar mission to us. So.
Very good. Yeah, I understand now. Thank you.
Indra.
Hey, Jason. I was just wondering, I know last time we spoke that we hadn't heard anything yet. Have you gotten any information on the timeline or start date for the new location? Any furniture removal, anything that's been being done over there?
My last conversation with facilities was right around the holidays. At that point, there hasn't been any movement. The funding is where it needs to be. The project strings have been created, but we haven't had any movement as far as the facility goes.
Okay, are they going to give you a timeline or has that anything like that been discussed?
No, it hasn't. I'll follow up with Cameron and see
Okay.
if I can get an
Okay.
update. But as of today, no movement.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So I just want to follow up too on Josh's question about the billboards. And just note that we found that there were a lot of veterans in our county who didn't even know we had a department. And so that was one reason why, the advertising was a priority. And then a question on GVSU. Can you tell me a little bit more about that event and what that outreach looks like with those veteran students?
Yeah, so most public universities have a veteran service office embedded within the university. Most specifically, their mission is to help veteran students navigate funding, right? Mainly the GI Bill or VOC rehab or being an R&E. So that's their mission. So within our space, we're veteran service officers. We help with claims and that. They're certified school officials, so they have the ability to certify credit hours and help, get the housing allowances, the book stipends and that sort of stuff done. So my efforts with Shane Schreier, who's the director of student veterans at GVSU, we have a referral network actually set up now. So Shane, when you have a new student that comes in and comes to the veterans organization at GVSU, one of the first conversations Shane asks, is there anything outside of education that you may need assistance with? There's a referral form that he fills out and it gets sent out to the counties that those students may be a resident of, right? So whether it's Kent, Allegan, Ottawa. So then I get that email. We reach out to the student to see if there's any further resources that they may need above and beyond the education. It's important for us to be a part of that community. We have students that are Ottawa County residents, and on top of that, those are resources that we could share in the future. So, we've had discussions about holding our resource fair and stand down on GVSU in the summer months when the students are out. There would be, ample space for us to do that. So it's just a collaborative effort between veteran service organizations to provide first-class service to veterans.
Okay, thank you. Well,
And then on top of that too, GVSU also has another veteran program called Upward Bound, which is really focused on business, right? And getting veteran-owned businesses or getting them into corporate America. So George is the director of that program as well. So he's been part of our resource fair in the past, and we continue to work, very close.
okay, what was that date one more time?
Upward Bound.
No, the date that did you say you were going to be at
Oh, yeah.
GVSU on a
So,
date?
GVSU is February 27th.
Okay,
It's a
thank you.
Thursday, 8 to 10.
Okay.
Jacob.
Jason, thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
We've talked in the past a little bit about the benefits that we give to our veterans. And I wanted to follow up a little bit on Commissioner Bruger's comment about how painfully low the burial allowance was at 300 for so many years. And I'm encouraged to see that that was reviewed and the number's been increased to 600. Want to talk a little bit about that with you. Can you describe what that conversation was like? What data you kind of went through as a committee to come up with 600? My concern is that it's still too low. With a simple search here, the average cost of a funeral in Michigan is between $5,000 and $9,000. A cremation memorial is $4,000. Is, for this group that is essentially without assets, very little assets anyway, I'm just not sure that 600 is helping in a meaningful way. My first question would be, how many funerals are we helping out in the last year, let's say, or?
Actually, we can go back 4 because that's what we did. So over the past 4 years, annually, we average 28.5 burial applications that are approved. So the 300 to 600, the 600 actually fits within our FY25 general fund budget. There has been discussion to actually go higher. Had we gone a little higher than 600, we would not be able to fill our general fund budget this year. So we were trying to stay fiscally responsible with the current budget that we have. There's been discussions to go higher. We kind of reeled that back just a little bit, the expectations, but the discussion has happened for us to actually, and then on top of that, most veterans in that situation can double dip a little bit, right? So we do have some federal VA burial assistance that goes along with that. So it's just not going to be the 600 that they get. We have the ability to help them apply for some additional burial benefits from.
How
the
much is
federal-
that? How much can they add to it?
Yeah, it could be, right now, if it's a non-service connected death, it's around $978, I believe. If it's a service connected death, it could go up to 2,000. We just had a law passed through, President Biden just signed it this past week. Actually, Senator Peters was the front runner on that bill. That bill now allows us to get the service connected amount folks who pass away in hospice care at home. Before it, you used to have to, you would pass away at either a VA facility in order to get that additional allowance, but they just changed it so that if you choose to go home and pass away with family and friends, you wouldn't be, punished for that. So, so that's a really good bill that went through. So, yeah, we did the analysis. We had some conversations. My budget analyst and fiscal, Sandy, was helpful with getting some of the cost of living percentages together for us. We looked at historical invoices from our applications from the past 4 years. That's where we, you're absolutely right. I've had some in the 13,000 range. And it's also important to note too that, any veteran who honorably served is entitled to a free burial at any of our national cemeteries. There are also some state cemeteries as well that we can work with. And there are some local cemeteries that have veteran dedicated plots that are discounted as well. So yeah,
Can this money be used for, let's say they wanted to be buried at Arlington or something like that? Can it be used to buy an airline ticket for the spouse?
so travel is covered. The federal VA will cover travel to the cemetery. Yes.
One time or? Just the one time for, sorry to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
just would that airfare just be for the one time going to see the burial plot the one time, or is it indefinitely, like anytime they want to go back and visit?
No, we're just specifically talking about the veteran burial. So if a veteran passes away here in Ottawa County and they choose to be buried at a national cemetery in California, the VA will provide the transportation costs to get the remains from Michigan to California.
Gotcha.
Also with the national cemetery, spouses are allowed to be buried with their veteran as well. So, yeah, current or former spouses. There could be a few of them in there.
Yeah, I think this is a place that I think there would be some broad support here at the board for a continued discussion on what we can do in special situations. So maybe we would increase it to further to $1,000, something that's a little bit more meaningful, but then also open the door for an as-needed request to go above and beyond in special situations. But, for these 30-ish families, 25 to 30 families per year, this is a big deal. And, they've served our country. So I don't think that this, an extra 30 grand total, is not outside of our ability to be able to budget for. So.
No, I agree with that. And conversation that we had would coincide with the, FY26 budget, right? So
What is your FY26 budget currently?
total for the department?
Total for your department?
General fund?
General fund.
I don't have the exact number for you, Commissioner Bonner. I want to say we're in the 400,000 range,
Right. And what was it 2 years ago?
a lot less than that, probably around 200. Yeah.
Maybe even less than that.
Probably a little less than that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're talking staffing contracts. The emergent funding burial allowances are always part of that. But, facilities, rent, IT, fiscal costs. Yeah, we're around 200.
One thing I'd like to request from you when you come in front of us again, next month even, if possible, if you could create a bar graph or a line graph, however it's best for you to put it together, that would show your department's budget
Mhm.
in comparison to the amount of dollars actually making it to veterans and their families.
Allison?
One thing to note on there, I think the context for what you were just asked to provide to us is that some of the stuff you're not necessarily going to be able to show the money involved, such as when you're talking about going to Grand Valley and working with different organizations. So I'm just wanting to put that on record. I think it's really important that we take care of veterans, not only when they get to the point of mourning the loss of one, but that we're looking at them throughout their whole life. And I appreciate Commissioner Bonema's statement about wanting to do more as it relates to burial costs. And I think that's a conversation that probably other members would welcome, to continue having the conversations and looking at what we can do as a county. And I know that you're also projecting forward for a potential millage conversation. And so I'm sure you're kind of gathering that information as you're going along too.
Correct.
And then I guess I would just also just say that I think a lot of the work that your department does is intangible. Just the support that you're providing veterans, a lot of those things you don't put dollar amounts on. You know, if you were paying, you know, counselors or whatever, yes, you can put a dollar amount on that. But I think a lot of the benefits go beyond just, you know, here's some money. So I do appreciate that aspect of your work. But also, so if you are providing those kinds of figures, could you also include the amount of money that's coming back to our veterans through the work that you guys do as VSOs and the VSOs working in your office? Because I think a lot of financial help does come back through your office through that particular work. And I think that's important to note. Thank you.
Very good.
Just
Thank
to-
you for your report, Jason.
Just to go on to that, Jason, like the time involved, like, so like when you go and spend time at different things, that might be a great addition. I have no idea how much extra work that adds on to you, but just things to consider as you're presenting information to us.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Next report is from Community Mental Health, Dr. Michael Bouchards. Mr. Bouchards. Hi.
Michael Brashear, CMH. Good morning.
Good morning.
Early this morning, I sent you the information that's handed out. You should have an electronic copy of my update. I was asked to be brief, which is impossible for me. I will be today because I also earlier this month sent an invitation to each of you for time to get together in February or at your convenience to get a comprehensive review of the department, which I think is needed because the CMH department, like all departments, are pretty complicated, a lot of moving pieces, and I can't really do justice in a couple of minutes. So what you're getting is two documents. The first one you're getting is just a general overview of how the system is structured, and then a brief report from me and some key highlights and some of our goals and objectives for this year. I'll wait for those to come around. Okay. So there are 46 CMHs in the state covering 83 counties. Of the 46, 40 of them are non-county departments. The rest are county departments. So the majority of CMHs in the state are not county departments at all. They're freestanding authorities that work with county government as well. We are also managed by 10 different regions in the state. And this is going to be an exercise in bureaucracy. And as Commissioner Bonema said a second ago, when does the money reach the people? Well, I will tell you, the money starts at the federal government at centers. We're primarily funded by Medicaid, which I'll get into in a moment. It then goes to the state through the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Then it goes to 10 different regions, which we're part of one called the Lakeshore region. The money gets there. And then within our region, there are 5 different CMHs in there. Us, Muskegon, Allegan, Kent County, which is Network 180, and 3 counties called West Michigan CMHS, Lake, Oceana, and I always forget the last one that's in there. So we form what's called the Lakeshore Regional Entity that controls 85% of our funding. So who do we serve? We primarily serve folks with developmental and intellectual disabilities, autism, substance use disorders, mental health, issues for adults and children. And we're the only system in the country where all of those public services are carved out into our system. So our system in Michigan, the different regions, who manages the mental health budget based on the mental health code is unique. There's no other state in the country that has it this way. How is the money usually spent by population? Well, about 40, these statistics here are pretty much the same for us internally within Ottawa CMH. 49% of our expenditures, or even a little bit more, go to folks with developmental intellectual disabilities, with specialized residential care and community living supports, bringing supports to their homes, being the top 2 expenditures. Then you can see about 36% of our folks with adults with mental illness make up about that level of expenditures. And we have over 15 to 20 different programs and approaches and over 10 different evidence-based practices that we utilize to serve folks with mental illness. Children with emotional disturbance, about 9% of the budget, and 6% folks with substance use disorders. And even though this infograph is basically showing kind of like the percentages statewide, they're pretty consistent with us in Ottawa County and most CMHs. Most states, the funding for developmental disabilities is separated. They're not integrated with the mental health funding. So we're asked as a CMH to manage all of these populations with the same dollar amount, and we're supposed to prioritize by severity or the greatest need. It's hard to do that, but that's what we're asked to do with those money. So there isn't money set aside specifically for each population group. We're asked to deliver all of the services to all of the populations with the same dollar amount. So you go to the next handout, you'll kind of see our revenue sources. The majority of our funding is Medicaid. Our Medicaid funding changes every year. It's based on the number of Medicaid enrollees in our county. And so we get a payment for every enrollee in Ottawa County, and 12 equal payments. Well, that fluctuates as Medicaid goes up and down with enrollment. To further complicate it, in Ottawa County, there are 2 different primary types of Medicaid, DAB, which is disabled, able, and blind, and TANF, which is people that get on Medicaid due to income statuses. The amount of money you get if you have more people that are disabled on Medicaid is higher than folks that if you just are on Medicaid because of income status and not necessarily disability. Problem with that model is the expectations to serve them are exactly the same. So all of the requirements we have to serve folks with the Medicaid budget, which is the majority of our budget, are identical regardless of what type of Medicaid they have, if they have Healthy Michigan or any of those things. And it's something that I'm addressing in terms of Medicaid funding equity. Ottawa County gets less per person per Medicaid enrollee than most counties in the state. It's the same requirements. And when I was here last as director, we had this issue with state general fund, and I led an effort to help kind of stabilize that. I have to do the same thing with Medicaid. We get state general funds as well. You know, it's about $4 million out of our $71 million budget. And then the county does a 10% match on our general fund dollars that we get from the state. So the county contributes the 10% mandated by the law that every CMH, regardless of their county department, get. And we're happy to receive those funds. We enjoy the benefits of being a county department with integration with other departments, work with the sheriff department, health department, other departments, Veterans Affairs. And I think it's an advantage to be a county department, not a disadvantage. I will say, though, that the Medicaid funding that we're receiving from the region, in my opinion, is not sufficient to meet our Medicaid obligations that we have. And so we're actively working on increasing those revenues. We also have a millage that was voted in by the taxpayers 10 years ago. It's up again, coming up next year, I believe. That brings in, roughly around between 4 and 5 million a year, just depending. And we actually depend on that funding for a lot of things, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. So from a budgetary standpoint, you can see we have about 4 or 5 different funding sources. I did do a series of educational talks. I've been back at the county for 6 months, and I've had about 5 talks already about the different funding sources that we have and our obligations connected with them. They're in the process of being recorded and then posted on the website, and we can give it to individuals to view. And it goes through each of the different funding sources we have, our obligations of them. And are we meeting that? Are we meeting that need? And those were very well attended by both public, commissioners came, board members came as well. I have a new series starting this month on how to access CMH services. How do you get in? What is the access standards for the public to be reminded of? I'm always asked, well, how do you get in? Well, there's a variety of eligibility determination tools and processes we use, but I intend to present that to the public. And of course, the commission is always invited to attend those. They're on the first and third Fridays of the month. I'm sorry, they're on Fridays for right now. We will try to change the day. They usually they go from noon to about 2. So I have a couple of goals for this year. These are broad range goals. This is not a strategic plan detailed version, but overarching goals for the year. The first one is to keep community and community mental health. One of the reasons why the millage has been so important for CMH is there's often groups of people that are not on Medicaid that need our services, that we don't get enough state general fund to provide the full array of mental health services. So the millage has helped us in 2 fundamental ways: reach out to people that are in the non-Medicaid population, and to augment and support services for folks on Medicaid where services have been cut in the past. And that's a huge advantage for us as a county. We're one of the few, I think there's another one about to pass a millage, but I think we're the only county in the state that has a millage for mental health, and it's been well needed. It's helped kept our residential system afloat. We've spent $12.5 million of millage since 2019 to keep our residential providers afloat for non-Medicaid charges. If that, we would have had significant closures in residential care. So keeping community and community mental health means offering a benefit that transcends Medicaid. If we're simply going to be a Medicaid health plan, then really being a county department it's like having priority health being in here. So we have to transcend the Medicaid benefit. And we can only do that by having a community focus and ensuring that community stakeholders have a voice in our strategic planning. A little under the weather, you'll have to forgive me. We also need to leverage Ottawa County, other resources within Ottawa County, which I think that we're trying to do. We have teams embedded in the Sheriff's Department, a lot of jail services. We offer grants and services to different departments and fund things there related to mental health. And ensuring we do that and developing and kind of increasing our input with seniors. So one of the presentations that I'm going to do the next time I come is on the Senior Reach program. What we're doing outside of Medicaid to help seniors with mental health issues and challenges. So that will be a focus of one of my upcoming discussions. We also need to become a center of excellence. We need to develop a robust outcome measurement system that measures efficiency and quality of CMH services. We have to be able to answer the question, does what we do make a difference? Does it work? Does it change lives? How effective are we as a directly operated CMH system? Meaning in Ottawa County, we directly operate with county employees the vast majority of services we provide. It's not like that in various aspects of the state. In fact, Kent County, it's the opposite. With Network 180, they contract out the vast majority of services. I think it's an advantage to have county employees delivering evidence-based practices, but we have to do a better job, and we're developing dashboards to say, are we excellent at what we're doing? Are lives changing? And is the money being spent effectively? So we're in the process of developing a new set of dashboards, which I hope to unveil this year. So I would sum up that the department has over 170 employees in it. It has a budget, when you add all the funding sources together, around $71 million. I think it's the second largest department in the county. We have a long history of being a county department and being part of county government. It's my job to ensure that we get the funding from the federal level and the state level that we need, and I'm actively pursuing to do that. Again, I'm going to be offering a comprehensive orientation to the CMH department at your leisure when I have a little bit more time to do that. I welcome any questions.
Any questions for Michael this time? Comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm just want to anticipate an item from finance. Can you just talk about the budget adjustment we have in finance, the 3.6 million? Just kind of give us a little bit more depth on that one.
I'd have to read the detail of it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Right, it's
Um,
okay, but there's a oftentimes within our CMH budget, almost every month, you're going to see an adjustment based on projected expenditures versus decreases or increases in revenue.
Mhm.
So usually when we have a budget adjusted, it's to do that. It's to address that.
Right.
Right now, we're actually projecting this year close to a $3 million Medicaid deficit.
Okay. Yeah, I just made to read it real quick. Says this amendment reduces Medicaid to align with LRE revenue projections. So basically the same things you've been saying is
Yeah,
that,
so what happens is we get the projections of Medicaid enrollees every month. And as fiscals will tell you, the CMH budget, it's very hard with the timing of our county budget to align what we're projecting and what we're actually getting. So every month we have to do an adjustment that sometimes is 2 months behind
Mhm.
in terms of it. But the reduction of Medicaid is solely based on the number of enrollees and the number of the projected revenue based on that.
okay. So I'm looking at the document you prepared for us back in November. Where are we at on that? The deficit reduction plan?
Yeah, thank you for asking. We have a robust strategy in dealing with our Medicaid deficit. It has a couple of components, which I'll briefly go through. The first one is to get a better handle on projecting our actual Medicaid expenditures. And we've done that. We've put in 10 or 11 different process changes to make sure we're on top of utilization data. What had happened last year and the year before is that we had an overutilization of residential services in COS. So we put in some controls to monitor that. We also put on a hiring freeze. We had positions that were approved by the commission, and we have unfrozen some of them if they're vital to maintain Medicaid operations or they bring in revenue. So I don't want to, freeze a position that could bring in additional revenue. We've also done a good job with looking at our rates, our contractual rates for providers, and in the process of determining what we need to do in terms of adjustments there and gaining more revenue from the regional entity, which is the Lakeshore Regional Entity.
Okay. And then I think bullet point number 2 on that was talking about county general funds. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, right now we get the amount allocated by law to our department from the county. And back then, when I was talking about it, I was actually looking at, is there a way to increase the amount of money we get from the county for county general funds to help deal with anticipated increases in wages, fringes, benefits.
Mhm.
So I think that what we were able to discover is that there was some question, could you actually give me more general fund? Is it legal? And the answer is yes, you can increase that 10% to any percent you want. What we ended up with is having a strategy of protecting county general funds at all cost, meaning try every other lever to pull for other revenue and expenditures, and then come back to the county with another request if we think we're going to need it. And I should know that by the end of the second quarter.
Okay, so summertime, we'll have a better idea what we need to do with bullet point number 2 then, right? Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
Welcome.
Sylvia.
Thanks. Could you tell us the amount or, just kind of generalize the amount that the county contributes? Because I think it's important to hear that figure out loud in comparison to the $71 million of your
About
total.
450,000. Sometimes it can go up based on the general fund and some other fees and stuff that comes in.
Right. So it's about 450,000 in comparison to about 71 million, which is the actual budget. Okay. When, I'm just curious because I can't remember. So during the pandemic, a lot more people were on Medicaid rolls than there are now. How Did that impact CMH? Was there that fluctuation then in your revenue? And
Yeah.
so you're going back down as well as people fall off those rolls?
Right. It's actually hitting us 2023 and 2024 more now, right? So the Medicaid standards were relaxed during COVID, so more people were eligible. And CMHs around the state actually were receiving extra dollars because of that. And we've seen a decrease in our revenue on Medicaid because of enrollments dropping. In fact, in our region, Ottawa has been hit the worst with this. We had a lot more people in that TANF, meaning that they got onto Medicaid due to financial reasons versus disability. And once the pandemic was over, right, those standards were reinstituted more strictly. So we had people falling off Medicaid that are no longer eligible. We even had people that have severe disabilities lose their Medicaid outright due to all kinds of confusion about the changing criteria to be on Medicaid. And as a result, we ended up having to supplement some of our Medicaid for some of these people with general fund dollars, state general fund dollars, which we get about $4 million, $4.5 million with in the millage. So Medicaid enrollments is definitely hurting Ottawa County CMH. I also think that the commission should know that we're expected to serve any person with Medicaid that comes in that's eligible for our services. So when you think of the population of Ottawa County and who's on Medicaid, we're only reaching, believe it or not, 5% of those Medicaid people. Imagine if 8% showed up or 10% showed up. We'd be bankrupt. We wouldn't have the ability to serve them. So I'm working at the state to say we should have set expectations of Medicaid funding based on mental health prevalence rates. So if the prevalence rate, say for depression, is 20%, you need to assume that maybe 20% of a population may seek you and fund us, or even a little bit lower than that. Right now, it's not even close to that. So we're not even using standard mental health prevalence rates to help set the expectations of how many people we should serve.
And I would just note too, just so other board members are aware, that the state has really shifted its emphasis on providing funding for mental health, for community mental health. And some of that money has gone more towards like education and dealing with some mental health issues within the schools. So that has also hurt CMHs across the state. And so one thing that we've been talking about is the need for Dr. Brashears to really be an advocate in Lansing and having our lobbyist assist with that, because it's a statewide need, but Dr. Brashears is very qualified in understanding all of these intricate systems based on his background. And so he could really make an impact in Lansing, helping them understand what the needs are, which would greatly help Ottawa, but also help, you know, our other counties. So that will be important going forward.
Yeah, throw them out there. I'm looking at the pie chart. Thank you. Love visual aids. Total budget 71 million. On the pie chart, it says the county general fund is 1%, which is roughly 710,000. Exactly. And you just said that we only support at 450,000. So is there more money coming from the county in another fashion? We seem to be missing about 300 grand.
I think they rounded up.
Did they rounded it up?
The chart.
Okay. All right. Got it. Thank you. You said, and I think this is probably what Sylvia was getting at, but one of your statements was Ottawa County gets less Medicaid funding per individual than other counties. Why?
Because it's the Medicaid per month per eligible payment we get is based on the number of DAB enrollees and TANF, and we're disproportionately higher on TANF, which helps them build the rate to give us.
Okay.
So if you're a county that has more people that are meeting Medicaid criteria due to income versus disability, your actual payment from the state through the regional entity is less per month per member.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're disproportionately TANF versus DAB, it's in the weeds, I know. That's really the issue. So we get penalized in a sense because of that ratio. And the thinking in Lansing is, well, if they're on the disabled, age, and blind version of Medicaid, they have a chronic illness, so it may cost more to serve them. And my thing is, actually, that doesn't stand true when you look at expenditures that we have for people that are on DAB and TANF. They're virtually the same, and the requirements are the same.
So when Sylvia mentions, or we mention lobbying in Lansing, if you will, that's what you're getting at right there.
Yes.
Okay.
But I will warn you, it's not popular for me to lobby that way because other CMHs love the way it is.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you're a county that gets 3 times more, and there are counties that get 3 times more than we get, which makes me angry. I'm getting angry right now thinking about it.
How do you really feel?
Then they don't like this, but I don't care. We have to bring in the amount of revenue for this county to serve the people of Ottawa as they deserve. And so, yeah, it will be a heavy lift, but there are partners in the state that we can work with, other CMHs that are in the same boat. And we had this with state general fund back in 2007, where we got the second lowest amount per county of state general fund out of 46. Now we get the 10th. We're up to 10. So there's a way to do this. It just takes a while.
Do we get a lot of legislative support from this?
We will, yeah, we'll get it. Yeah, the folks that we can tap on are well aware of the issue. And so right after the holidays here, I was like, okay, now it's time to get legislators together, the ones in our region, kind of talk about it and move on it. But really, it's simply how the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services calculates the rate. So the legislature can put pressure on them. They can't, like, I guess they could pass a bill that says do it this particular
Right.
methodology. But yeah, I'm anticipating a lot of legislative support.
Especially locally, our local legislators are
Right.
supportive.
Hello, Dr. Bashir. Your work at CMH is extremely personal to me. I have worked on behalf of a legal guardian for a ward for over 30 years, mental disabilities and income-based under Medicaid. I know how difficult it is to have to navigate the system. I know how easy it is for a mentally ill person to get off the system because they're not following the procedures and things that they need to do. For over 30 years, I was working downtown Grand Rapids. I saw the mental illness population increase almost every day. So this is really personal to me in your work. And I've always felt that the community, I'm talking statewide, underfunded the mental health programs in the state. And that we have an obligation to protect that community who can't protect themselves. And we wonder why there's so many homeless, for example, on the streets, right? So that's just a simple example. But I really do appreciate that you're coming up with new dashboards. So as much as I'm so personally invested in this, in your work, and I've always thought that those that serve that population, the social workers, the nurses, it's a burnout profession, and yet they're working with underserved, they're with limited, extremely limited resources many times, and yet they're still giving their hearts and souls to taking care of those people that need help. This is very, like I said, this is very personal to me, and I've got firsthand experience. But on the other hand, I also know that there's a balance, and how we handle in any issues in society, how do we handle the needs of those that can't, including autistic, community, versus a budget. So the fact that you're coming up with benchmarks specifically to make sure that you're asking the question, do we really make a difference, which is one of your points. It's a great question. We should always be asking ourselves that question. And I really do appreciate you having that focus. And figuring out example, how do you handle that deficit that you're dealing with, right? So I just want to commend you for your work and all the people that, you mentioned that all the people that work for you, and not just you, but in other communities too, because I know, so keep it up, keep those dashboards going to test your efficiencies and performance standards. But you will have my support for sure. But I appreciate you putting a balance to it too. Very much. So thank you.
One of the dashboards we're creating is when we lose touch of someone we're serving, What are
Mhm.
we doing to reconnect?
Wow, great one. It's so easy.
What's the result of not connecting?
That's the problem when so many of the mental ill folks, they think they can control their own meds and they just get off them because they don't want to be on them and then everything goes to heck. You know, that's just, so to have that link between community mental health and the individual and then the caretakers, I mean, it's a complicated morass. So I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, briefly, I'd just like to echo what Commissioner Teeples just said and say thank you. And then my other two comments were, I just want to say thanks for pursuing additional funding. I know that's going to be a long-term process, but I thank you for making it a priority. And the question that you asked, are lives changing? I have not personally, been involved with this community, but I have spoken to people who have been in John's shoes or in other people. And so that is the question that they, live every day and that we need to be asking, how are their lives changing? We do not want them getting worse if it's our issue. So thank you for focusing on that.
Questions for Michael? Thank you, Michael. Thank you for what you're doing. Next is Department of Health and Adeline Hamley. Good morning.
I give you some handouts for the board.
Sure.
I think,
You-
like Dr.
Can you please pull that mic down? Right there. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I'm a little nervous. He said he was under the weather. So
Can we spray that mic a minute for her?
So like Dr. Bashirs was saying, public health also has a lot of different programs and a lot of variability. And so there are a lot of programs. So I will reach out and send some of our past annual reports. And we have some one-page summaries on the different programs. So you can have some background that way and perhaps schedule to come in and come into the department. So I won't spend a bunch of time going like over every single program. What I did want to talk about today, I guess as a general overview, we have a couple different pockets for our programs. We have community initiative or community identified programs. The community has determined was important to have, like our children's special health care services kind of falls in that area. And then we also have mandated services that we're required to provide under the law. With the mandated services, we have minimum program requirements, and then we get funding through the state for providing those services. And today what I want to do was, unfortunately, rip the Band-Aid off right down to business, because we had some things kind of in the pipeline for the last couple of months that have been a bit of a holding pattern. And you'll see items related to them in the finance meeting for the BAs. So what I just handed out, and I printed off a few extra in case people in the audience wanted to know what I was talking about. But we have some position requests that are related to some additional funding we're receiving from the state. And so I just wanted to run through those. So it was on the radar for when it came in front of the board to be considered and perhaps answer any questions. There is additional information attached, kind of going into more detail on each of the programs and what they do. But first was a dental assistant position increase from a 0.8 to a 1.0. There were some verbal approvals to do this change from Ben Wetmore, but they were not confirmed in writing, so we were unable to move forward with that. This is some additional funding from the state that we were awarded, almost $100,000 for kindergarten oral health assessments. And Casey was here last month to kind of provide an overview. It is a screening for kindergarten children to check and refer if there are issues. But that's a new mandated program from the state, so they issued some
new funds along with that. And we felt that the increased FTE for the dental assistant manager, what they do is kind of reach out to the schools and schedule the appointments and schedule those screenings. And they're kind of the coordinator of the work in the office. So that additional help would help us meet those requirements. The next on the list was a hearing and vision technician and a new position of a 1.0. This is part of our central local public health services that we get funding from the state. But recently the funding allocation was increased from the state and 125,000 increase was awarded. If you look in the attached packet, you'll kind of see, I'll hold it up, the graph here and what the numbers are looking like over time. That big dip in 2021 is because we were not in schools providing that screening during COVID. But you'll see that the 2024 numbers have rebounded and are going up from previous numbers. And so that's part of the reason that funding was increased. And that additional hearing and vision tech will allow us to meet the need of providing those hearing and vision screenings for additional students. And kind of hand in hand with that, the hearing and vision clerk increase from a 0.5 to a 0.8. Again, using those funds from the state to allow us to provide increased support for the number of students and the amount of support work for the additional tech. Again, these are all provided funding from the state and not any county general fund. And the last is a substance use disorder educator. This was put in as a request for a new position as part of the budget process. But the grant wasn't approved at that time. So it got approved, I think, September, I think, by the board once the grant came through. And so tied to it was this position, but we needed to come back before the board for consideration once the grant was approved because it's fully grant funded. And so in the attached, there's a lot more information about those programs and what those positions do for you to review. The other ask on the back of that first page, we had some discussions in September about the 900,000 infection prevention and healthcare associated infection prevention grant. I wanted to, specifically for the commissioners that were on the board at that time, if you kind of flip through to what looks like this page, you'll find some additional information I was able to get from the state on the acceptable uses of that, because I think there was some discussion in September about hospital-acquired infections and only being able to use it for that. So I was able to get more information from MDHHS on that funding. And you'll see kind of the list of what we are able to use that for. And that 900,000 is really to allow us to offset our existing costs where there's no positions tied to that. But when there are response activities, whether it's an outbreak or even like even influenza at the farms right now, anytime there's calls or coordination, we can charge our time to that. So like if I'm on a call for 2 hours, getting a brief on avian influenza in the county, I can charge 2 hours of my time to this grant and offset our general fund county dollars. There aren't any specific asks for positions related to that grant. It's just accept it so that we can use it to charge to when we have outbreak infection prevention activities related to what you can see in that. And then last on that sheet is a $705 roughly $1,000 grant for strengthening public health workforce and infrastructure. And so what we would like to use this for is we have in the queue to remodel the clinic side of our building and along with it to update so that we're ADA compliant because that work hasn't been completed. When we met with the facilities in the fall, I think we were like running up to about 500 to 600,000 for the ADA compliance work. And we had a budget for clinic remodel that was about 500,000. So this would hopefully allow us to add to that pool. So we can do some of the clinic remodel and complete the ADA work. And so this is like a new request, but it is coming through the state and we can use it for that purpose, for building infrastructure. The reason I'm putting it kind of in front of you and wanted it on your radar is these come through our state funding system, which is called eGrams. And they only open that to amend like I believe like a quarter. And so we can make amendments in January, and then we'll have to wait again to make amendments. Some of the things, like these 2 grant requests, I believe they said we can make amendments later and backdate it to a start date. But that's part of the reason, because of the system that we're working in with the timelines, that I wanted to provide the information as soon as possible and get it on your radar as soon as I could. I think that was kind of it in a fast down to business overview. Sorry.
Hey, thanks, Addie. Appreciate it. These 6 items, they've been shown to the administrator yet or no?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep. I spoke to Gary about it. The timing is a little strange because all of these things require the administrator to look at and look. So I think I sent them to you and we maybe talked on the phone on Wednesday, your first day as interim. But it's just kind of all compressed to get it all in front of you. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe?
Just a quick question. Is clinical remodel more expensive than general remodeling? I was just curious, due to equipment or other things, or is it similar?
It can be. So like the chairs that, like move up and down, and yeah, they can be expensive. We're hoping to reuse some of what we have in there and have it be like the flooring and stuff like that to get like a spruce up, I suppose. Some of what we're looking at, or what facilities ran through with us for the ADA compliance, is that there would be some changes that were relatively costly because they had to take down like a wall because the clinic rooms are too small to be ADA compliant. They're not like wheelchair accessible. So to make some that are, they have to do some pretty significant remodeling in order to be able to get the chairs in, like potentially wheelchairs. That's, I believe, where part of that cost is coming.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. You talked about the time sensitivity of these grants. Are there any that need us to make a decision in January? Or can we move some of this into a later month?
There are 2 answers to that. What I really, really, really love if we could get it in January, so we don't have to wait until the end of February.
Right.
Because some of the positions have been kind of hanging out in limbo for a while. Yes. Can we survive if it needs to get pushed off? Yes. And the state, I did confirm with them on these 2 grants that they will allow us to backdate the start date for that next open amendment period. So the grants are probably, for me, not as much of a as the positions are. Because once you're talking, I think the board meeting in February, then it's posting, we're looking at like quite a few months out to have somebody in the position doing the work. And that, of course, it would not be my preference, but can we survive? Yes. So.
John, is there any reason we couldn't have this on the 28th?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I've been thinking that, this kind of, we haven't brought this kind of, it seems to me, and you guys have to help me with this, this is a finance committee issue. And we don't have it on the agenda today. And our next board meeting is the 28th. So that's why I'm trying to figure out if it's something that we need, because it needs to go through, we should have this is why we've got 2 committees, right? So we can, if we need to, we can bypass it. We can, but that's not the ultimate goal, is to still work through the committees. And that's what I'm concerned about. And I don't want to put at jeopardy, a $900,000 grant discussion, for an example. That's what I'm getting at. I just want to make sure that we're not putting a crimp on on this potential by not talking about it sooner.
Yeah, and I mean, it's handled differently, and I think Commissioner Kyers probably has more of the historical. I think I mean, in the past, things can be added to the agenda. Usually in the past, when we've had items like this, we would provide an update at Health and Human Services so we could answer more in-depth questions, maybe about programs and things like that. And then it would also be on the Finance Committee for consideration as a financial item.
Yeah.
And then it would go to the board. And so I don't know if that's not.
It sounds like the more urgent items are the position requests on the first page. So, just for everybody's benefit, I would feel free to, I would motion to add these to the finance agenda, these 4 on the front page. They're relatively, if there was no objection at the next meeting.
Doug's raising his finger.
I don't know if I raised my hand or my finger, I'm sorry. I think what Commissioner Moss says makes a lot of sense. We also have discussed the 900,000 ELC grant 3 months ago, a little bit of back and forth on that, but I think, if that's something we're gonna do, I think it makes sense to add that to finance.
Those ones sounded a little less urgent than the,
Right, I mean, we have had that
positions.
discussion, at least the 6 of us, so.
but I think I'd rather do the urgent things if we're going to and save the other ones for full discussion.
From a procedural standpoint, once we start the finance committee meeting, we'd make a motion to add that. Is that about how we do that?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, good.
Any other discussion on these? Any other ask questions for Adam?
Stick around by the sounds of it.
Go, Jacob.
Yeah, Addie, a topic of discussion over the last 18 months was Ottawa food. Would you mind giving us a little update on where we stand with them?
Yeah, I wasn't quite prepared. Sierra
Surprise.
has
Yeah.
started meeting and organizing those meetings, so the group is active again. I imagine she's very passionate about that work. If you would like a future update, I can have her do a 5 or 10-minute update on what they're up to and what their goals are for the year. If the board, if Health and Human Services would be interested. Yeah.
Super. So yeah, please invite Sierra to come and share her passion. That'd be great.
On the bird flu going on, do you have any update on that, or do you have any insight on that, or do they keep you out of the loop on that? Or is it,
So the state, how it usually works, so MDARD oversees the vet animal health side. So they usually are aware of it first. And so we will get a contact from MDARD saying that there's a farm that is positive in your county. And that's all the information we get on that phone call. And so it's not particularly helpful, but they're limited to what they can share. And we'll then get a follow-up from MDHHS, who will provide more details. But traditionally, the state is sort of the lead because MDARD has the veterinary or the animal scientists and the vets in their department. They kind of handle the animal health side of things and advising the farmer. And then MDHHS is collecting information on workers and workers' health. And then they report to us if somebody reports symptoms. And then we follow up to make sure that they can get testing for flu or an RSV and everything else just to rule out what may be causing the symptoms. We do have lots of different PPE. Lou's office does as well that we offer to the farms if they would like to provide it. Lou's office, emergency preparedness, emergency management downstairs here. They are more involved with assisting the farmers organizing like calling events so that he works with the fire departments and helps coordinate all of that with the farmers. But at this point, it's a kind of more of a situational awareness for us, and we're a little bit more limited unless somebody reports symptoms.
thank you.
This is where I acknowledge that I'm a city boy. I'm a farmer. I have, I don't know, chickens. How do I know that they have the bird flu? What are the symptoms? Do they run a fever? Do they vomit? Do they, I just
Birds-
real, I know nothing. So this is,
I do. It's a fun, it's an amusing question. Yes, no, they don't, they can't. But they will look lethargic and it actually for chickens and birds, it's relatively deadly and and pretty quickly.
Just-
So
yeah.
what they recommend or what we're hearing, so we have some calls with like FDA and then USDA vets and things like that. If you have backyard flock, I recommend trying to, contain them and not let them free range. If you have a backyard flock, they recommend not feeding wild birds as well. Those that don't have backyard chickens, there's not advice to not feed wild birds at this time. And then also for anybody to be aware of like going between farms, whether you're handling somebody's pet chickens or at a farm, to not, there's some decontamination, like walking through bleach and things like that, to try and prevent spreading it between flocks.
Okay.
So there's recommendations for not eating raw eggs and not drinking raw milk because they have had, I think there was somebody that fed raw milk to their cats, had some issues with their cat's health. There were some stories from Washington, I think, with like big wild cats having some deaths because they fed like raw poultry.
Mhm.
I mean, a tiger, you shouldn't do that. But also,
remember that.
we
Thanks.
recommend cooking and not, there are some raw foods that you can buy for pets now, like I don't know, farmers' dogs,
Mm.
heat treated, but like that kind of, to not feed raw right now, somewhat of a recommendation.
So in the city of Grand Haven, we passed a backyard chicken ordinance where folks can have, I think it's up to 5 yeah. And the risk of them in a contained chicken coop in the individual's backyard is pretty low. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're especially with the rules in cities for, you can't have them like free range.
Yep.
So, yeah, the risk would be really low.
Good, thank you.
There was one item too that I think that the previous board that we talked about, that was the statewide sanitary code. That was considered as a new bill, but that did not go anywhere in the last lame duck session. So yeah, just a quick.
Good.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Addie, for this packet that you put together. I think it's very helpful in helping each of us be able to read through your requests and the background. I appreciate that. I think I would ask for our finance committee to potentially add that to the packet for the public to be able to look through later on as well. So I just want to say thank you for your work on that.
Good. Jacob?
Yeah, just wanted to follow up. We discussed last year about the need of epidemiologists here in Ottawa County. Are we currently fully staffed? I believe we needed to have 3,
Yes.
and we currently have 3 on board.
Yeah.
Good deal.
So last year, one of those epidemiologists was kind of moved over and housed in environmental public health section and primarily focused on that. But with this 2025 budget that the board passed, they were moved back to house in the epi, kind of working across all programs in the health department. So
Great, great to hear. And then the second question is maybe kind of related, but maybe for the administrator or facilities to follow up on. But we were talking about ADA access and compliance. I know we walked around the health building a little bit together. We've got some issues there. Does that grant also apply to helping ADA access to other buildings in the county, or specifically just a health?
only be the buildings that we would be in. So potentially for Hudsonville, yes, in our clinic spaces. Yeah,
So we can use that money for more than
just the Holland.
Holland
building.
location, yeah, okay. Are we, and this is maybe a question for administration, but are we aware of other ADA compliance issues in other buildings that we've not addressed yet?
To double check with facilities. I know they did a real in-depth walkthrough of the Holland facility because that was kind of the priority since it's where the majority of the services are provided. And they did a very thorough walkthrough and a very thorough plan. But I'm not sure about Hudsonville, so I'll have to follow up.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
At this time, Report from Department of Health and Human Services, Kendra Svanda. Good morning, Kendra.
For those that I haven't met, hello. I just wanted to, they asked for a quick synopsis of why am I even here? Because I'm not a county employee. So I work for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, serving Ottawa County. And the reason why I participate is because we have a county-run board that helps to oversee our operations. Of the 3-member board, 2 of them are appointed by the county and sit on our board that we meet monthly. So instead of having a commissioner on our board, I come and present and allow those counties individuals to be appointed and continue in my board meeting. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is because we collaborate together on the county child care fund budget, which always the chair of the commission signs off on every year. So like to present information and data that helps you at the local level to support the initiatives that might be beneficial with those that are in need. So I usually come and provide some data. So I thought I would do that as I normally would. So starting with data on our assistance side. So in November, we had the following programs and individuals that were active in those programs. So first, cash assistance, or what's called Family Independence Program. Here in Ottawa County in November, we had 248 individuals that received cash assistance, which was a little over $220,000 that was brought into Ottawa County. That was an increase of about 13 individuals from 2023. Our food assistance program, or as individuals would consider the bridge card or food stamps. In November, we had 17,793 individuals receiving, which was close to $3 million. That was brought into Ottawa County in November, which was an increase of 112 individuals over 2023. We also oversee what's called the State Disability Assistance Program, which is a program that individuals can apply for if they believe they should be on disability, but they're maybe awaiting SSI to make that determination. They're able to start in our office as well. With that program, we had 62 individuals that were receiving SDA assistance, which was close to $10,000 being brought into Ottawa in November, which was an increase of 11 from the prior year. CDC, or child daycare assistance. We had 1,234 individuals receiving that, which was close to $500,000 brought into Ottawa in November. And that was an increase of 160 over the prior year. Just to note with that specifically, we continue to have an individual that does outreach through a collaborative partnership with the intermediate school district. And that individual definitely helps to improve our numbers related to meeting those that could qualify for CDC that otherwise wouldn't know about our programs. But due to that outreach, we continue to see a rise in individuals that are eligible. Medicaid, as already kind of mentioned earlier today, for Medicaid, we have 32,695 individuals that are receiving Medicaid as of November. That is a decrease from the prior year of 3,379 individuals. As mentioned previously, the public health emergency was ended, and that we did see a decrease, not as significant as we had planned. Actually, we still have more individuals that are receiving Medicaid than we did pre-2020. So not as far down as we had originally anticipated. Healthy Michigan program, which is also a part of Medicaid, but the requirements are not as high, or as low. To get Healthy Michigan, that also has maintained higher than 2020 levels. We are currently at 11,168 individuals that are receiving Healthy Michigan, which is a decrease of 3,847 from the year prior. Overall, for all of our programs that we have, there are 46,198 Ottawa County residents that are receiving assistance programs with us. That's an unduplicated number, so they wouldn't be receiving multiple programs. Lastly, on our assistance side, we have what's called supplemental emergency relief, and I actually have a couple of updated brochures if you guys would like to comment. In collaboration with Community Action Agency, we have what's called LIHEAP, which is the Low Income Health and Energy Assistance Program for individuals that may need help with shut-off notices for electric or heat. So we do have an updated brochure, which is being passed around. With that, it's called supplemental emergency relief is what they come in and apply with us, and then use that to potentially get resources from other agencies. In November, we had 121 individuals apply for supplemental emergency relief that were approved and received $44,179 coming into Ottawa County in November. That is a decrease of 69 from last year. I think our biggest thing with supplemental emergency relief, what we see is a number of people will apply but are not eligible. The biggest one would be housing and eviction. As I'm sure you are very much aware, the cost of housing in Ottawa County is significantly high. And we have a lot of people that will come in and apply and they are not eligible because housing is not considered affordable. So the amount of money that they're paying towards rent is not considered affordable based on how much their rent is and how much they actually make. So we do see a lot of denials for supplemental emergency relief and continue to assist those clients when possible with using those denials to go to other agencies.
Sorry, can you say that again? Rent is too high, excuse me. Their cost burden for rent is too high. As a result of it being identified as too high, they are disqualified?
Correct. Because if we're going to pay for that, them to be out of eviction, how are they going to maintain their months after that? So there is a requirement that a certain number of what they're making can't be high. Their rent can't be 50% of their income, because then we're not able to help them. They're just going to be in the same spot next month. So unfortunately, we are unable to assist them with that eviction notice unless they find an alternative that would be considered affordable.
Who makes those determinations, the threshold of what's too high?
It's through a formula. So
By the department?
yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
So taking into all accounts. So what's their income? What are their assets? What is all the money that's coming out? So does their rent include heat and electric? All those pieces are all put into the formula to see if it's considered affordable.
So would it be overly simplified? Probably is what I'm about to say, but we can't help you in Ottawa County. Feel free to move somewhere else, and then you can get the assistance you need?
No, because
Being that housing is so expensive in Ottawa County.
Well, the issue really comes down is that, I have an example. We have a family that came to us and their rent was $2,000 a month. Mom overall was making $3,000 in a month. Obviously, her rent is 66% of her income. And so we can't say, yes, we agree this is a good place for you to live, but she's saying, I have nowhere else do I go. And so then we're having to refer her to other programs to potentially help her find housing. But is there any? That's the question. And so I know that you guys have a housing commission that's looking at some of those things. But just finding housing as a whole is difficult, let alone people that can't afford where they're living. And so they're piecing things together. The other piece with that is if you're obviously doubling up with people, we have to take in both incomes into account, so there's lots of variables. Overall, I would just say for the people that we're seeing, it's very difficult when we're having to tell them, I'm sorry, we can't help you because your rent is too high.
Okay, thanks.
I just have a question. A couple months ago, I went to a dinner for the Good Samaritan group in Holland. I'm trying to understand how the players work together or don't or whatever. Is there a relationship there? Or do they refer to your office?
Yes, absolutely. We definitely have a very collaborative relationship with them. A lot of times people will come to us and do the SER and then receive a denial, go work with them, and in the process too. So there's times that we'll handhold many clients together.
Great, good. I was very impressed by the dinner that I went to, and I think they're doing good work in that space.
Sorry, we kind of hijacked your presentation.
No, that's, ask the questions. That's why I'm here. So.
Well, I appreciate this because I'm trying to figure out what you do versus somebody else. So this has been really good. What's the role, if this is a state department and a lot of mandates other than sitting on your board, what's the role of Ottawa County and what you do? Where do we come into play?
Right. Well, it's a good question. We have a lot of collaboratives, such as we have a donated fund position that's at community mental health. So there's blended funding there so that we are able to collaborate together very easily to ensure that we're getting eligible individuals on Medicaid that might be receiving CMH.
So we're providing some money for that type of a project? Or, okay, okay.
Yep.
And
So-
where else?
Oh man. I think a lot of it has to do with, again, collaboration. So we work with things with the health department together. We work with CAA. There's constant collaborations and conversations about how we can blend services, ensure we're not duplicating services, make sure funds are going in the right places. I sit on a lot of committees and boards. I sit on the Lakeshore Nonprofit Alliance. I sit on the Lakeshore Housing Alliance. I mean, I could go on and on. But yeah, so mostly I would say collaboration is the biggest thing, ensuring that you guys are also getting the data and information you need so you can apply for grants for constituents, ensure that the services and the funds that you're needing, as you've heard many times, a lot of things from DHHS, mandates and such. I oversee just the local entities with the child welfare side and the assistance programs.
So, just to
sorry.
add, no, it's okay. Just to add one more piece to that is the children that our courts serve in foster care and stuff, then Kendra is responsible for overseeing their care in the actual homes. So that's, to me, that's a really hugely important
Yeah,
piece
I
of
didn't
overlap
get
with
to
the
those
county.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So a couple other things. So I was going to get to where Sylvia's at too. So just lastly, the other part that I've brought up is our refugee numbers as well. We are the second largest county in the state of Michigan for refugee population. And we have 231 individuals as of November, only 20 below Kent County, which is the largest county. So that's definitely been over the last few years that we continue to see that population be pretty high in comparison across the state.
How many were there? Sorry.
231.
230.
What is their origin?
Ooh, majority, I would say, would be Cuban. And we actually have a designated worker that we chose as a county, not the county, but the state, my office. I chose to prioritize Cuban refugee workers. So I have an individual, if you come into my office, he's one of my lobby staff and speaks Spanish, does an amazing job with getting them to where they need resources and such. So we are very welcoming here for the Cuban refugees, and they love, I mean, they'll come in and actually, hey, where's Michelle? So. All right. And then as Sylvia kind of already alluded to, thank you, Sylvia. Our child welfare side is the other part of our office. And so as of December 31st, we had 134 active child protective services investigations, which is an increase of 11 over last year. We had 75 cases that were open for CPS ongoing services, which means they were substantiated and the family may be in need of additional services and supports. And that was an increase of 18 over last year. We have 38 direct foster care cases and 44 privatized foster care cases. So a total of 82 cases of kids in foster care that could be either out of home and or placed at home, maybe reunified, but having some oversight by the court here in the county. And that's a decrease of 16 from last year. We continue to see that go down, which is great. It may look bad that we have more ongoing cases, but that means we're finding resources and services to keep them in their home. And that's our ultimate goal. We have 75 foster homes that are licensed just through DHHS, not including our private agency partners. Unfortunately, that's a decrease of 17 from last year, and we continue a lot of recruitment efforts in that vein. We have 8 youth pending adoption, which is a decrease of 3 from last year. And we obviously saw that for Adoption Day. We were blessed with not having any abuse and neglect adoptions on Adoption Day, but continue, as I said, we have 8 youth pending, and unfortunately for some of them, we don't have any long-term placements for them. So always looking for people that might be interested in adopting. And then lastly, we have 30 prevention cases, and we don't have data from last year because it didn't exist. And so we are very glad that we have those 30 cases, and we can hinder between 30 and 40 cases of providing support without having a CPS investigation. So that's my data. I am very much open and willing to meet with any of you that don't know the department well. Come and tour. We're actually in one of your facilities. We lease our building from the county. So definitely open and willing to have people come and see our location. You can meet Michelle and Jason, my lobby staff. They are phenomenal. We get lots and lots of kudos from people that will come from other counties to our lobby and sometimes help them. Things are split by county, but we definitely have a lot of great staff. So I'm very blessed. Unfortunately, I won't be here next month because we have nonprofit next on the exact same day. But if there are any specific data or points of interest for you, please let me know and I will work on gathering that for you.
Thank you, Kendra. That's one of the points I was going to make. If any of you has specific things from these reports, please let me know, and we'll relay that to the people, and we can do that. So, any questions for Kendra?
I'm just wondering if same request from everybody that we've asked, if you could email us the information you presented so that we can include it in the packet, that'd be awesome.
Great.
I was trying to write down all the information. I got a cramp, so.
Don't worry.
Good. Thank you very much. At this time, it's the second time for public comment. If there's any public comment, please state your name and address and 3 minutes.
Mayor's Becky Patrick, Allendale. 3-sentence public comment. I want to call your attention to the second page on the handout that Health Officer Hambley gave you. You were concerned about the viability of the $900,000 grant and wanted to make sure that you received it. I want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that this grant was in fact part of the fiscal year 25 budget, and it was pulled off of that budget by the former board majority. So this grant has been hanging fire since September. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Virginia Greenlee from Park Township. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Interestingly, I wanted to also make a comment on that grant request. I wanted to make sure none of our tax dollars go towards something that obligates us to other requirements to have to oblige just for the sake of receiving grant money. We all know that when COVID was really being pushed, any business that received COVIDized money had to comply with their requirements at the expense of the fact that over 99% of the people were at low risk of getting COVID and being able to get over it. And they pushed it and they pushed it, and the spirit of fear took over the whole world with a lot of lack in true science, a lot of lack of what really is an infection versus not. And then because of the way the COVID PCR tests were done, they were set at such a high level that it would pick up on people having a cold, a flu, pneumonia. It was all being positive COVID. And a lot of money and billionaires came out of the COVID money that was made. We cannot accept grants that have different requirements hidden between the lines that our previous board was quick about catching because they were scrutinizing the wording of every grant proposal's implied requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Good morning.
Okay. My name is Beth Van Hoven, and I'm from Georgetown Township. I got notes along because the subject I want to speak on, I have a passion for, and I don't want to get sidetracked. I'm very concerned with what I consider to be propaganda and politics with all the recent discussion about the chair of the CMH board, and I'll tell you why. We have an autistic 37-year-old son who's been involved with CMH for a long time. We felt within this last year with the chair, along with the new CEO, Dr. Bashirs, and a strong board with great fellowship, that there was real hope. Things were being acknowledged, budgets were being examined, and objective standards were being made. Finally, some accountability and hope for a population who so deserve it and have to fight for everything they get. It feels like a never-ending battle. 10 years ago, we lost Can Do, a huge loss for hundreds of marginalized adults who are not all given back a purpose in our community. We have a future where 1 in 36 children are diagnosed with autism, with that number continuing to increase. Our mental health and substance abuse population has increased exponentially. We have a housing crisis with an aging population. On top of that, we have a Medicaid deficit that Dr. Bashir's was hired into. Respectfully, does this really seem like the time to pull in past board members? Are we playing politics or doing the right thing? Gretchen Cosby was one of our biggest assets on CMH. Her knowledge, incredible spunk, grit, and tenacity, as well as her integrity of character, were unmatched. She was a fighter for the CMH recipients and will be incredibly missed. What a huge loss for this board and the CMH community. It was glaringly obvious that in your push to replace Gretchen, you were not at all thinking about the children or the recipients of CMH. I believe you were solely thinking about political gain. It's so disheartening. I pray that each of the parents that use CMH will rise up and speak against this. Gretchen was one of the biggest proponents. What I believe to be a power grab with the new board members and their selfish ambitions took away a woman who was fiercely in support of the recipients of that board. Gretchen was not in this for any type of political gain or game. I want to say well done, Commissioner Cosby, and thank you for your selfless act of resigning. Your actions speak volumes in regards to your care for those individuals within our CMH recipient community. Thank you for everything you work tirelessly to do to make CMH better for the community that uses their services. Your absence will be felt throughout the CMH community as well as your peers. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you, Beth. Comments at this time? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we have any public comment online?
We don't have to do public. That's just board meetings.
At the board meetings? Okay. We will
10
take a
minutes.
10-minute recess to reset for the next meeting. Thank you.